A beautiful, beautiful welcome to the social show. It's been a minute and our time's a bit crazy, but we're not going anywhere. My name is Kyolwana, your host. And you know, the social show is about CSI, CSR, and CSV. So if you don't know anything about that or what's going on in South Africa at the moment, you tuned into the right station. Again, if you want to lodge some complaints or actually ask me a few questions, please don't be afraid to email me on press@social-tv.co.za, or you can just go on our site and find out what it is that you would like to know more about on www.social-tv.co.za. It's been a minute, but let's get into it with the news. An event hosted by Blisters for Bread in association with Lucky Star took place at Greenpoint Cricket Club recently, and it turned out to be a fantastic success. Over 12,000 walkers from all cultures and communities in the Western Cape united in the fight against childhood hunger by entering the 5-kilometre and 10-kilometre walks along the sunny, scenic Sea Point Promenade. Thanks to the walkers who each paid an entry fee of about $50, the event managed to raise an outstanding 600,000 Rand. 100% of this amount will enable the PSFA to provide at least 2,000 hungry learners with a nutritious breakfast and a lunch while at school for an entire calendar year. High-profile walkers on the day included Anaru Marius, the Western Cape Minister of Cultural Affairs and Sport, Patricia de Lille, Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Demi Lee Nell Peters, the reigning Miss South Africa, and many more, and various sports and entertainment celebrities. In other news, the Institute of the Security Studies has ranked wildlife crime the fourth most lucrative form of organized crime globally and one of the most expensive security challenges facing Southern Africa. It is said that It's said most of the available data on the wildlife crime focused on poaching and smuggling, resulting in an emphasis on securing national parks and patrolling borders. More information was needed on curbing the demand and understanding how organized crime networks operate. This led to establishing a new pilot project called INACT, which is a code for enhancing Africa's capacity to respond to transnational organized crime in partnership with the Global Initiative Against Organized Crime and Interpol. I'm excited to find out a little bit more about that. But lastly, in our news, we've got coffee brand Lavaza and Spa Bean Tree, where they've collaborated to uplift South Africa's deaf community by training them and employing them internationally into becoming coffee shop baristas through their Zero Coffee Academy. The initiative is made possible by CCA, of which the Lavaza Training Academy is a part of in South Africa. Its barista upliftment program has selected a number of deaf people to get into barista training and offers a specifically designed sign language menu. That is amazing, actually. After completion of the training, the CCA also assists with employment of deaf barista graduates through its network of clients, including Spa Bean Tree, to help them launch their coffee careers. And that concludes our news for the day.
brandlive.co.za. Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat.
Or you're back on the social show. And as you know, this is your one-stop shop for all things CSI, CSR, and CSV. That is corporate social investment, corporate social responsibility, as well as creating shared value. Now, if you have been listening to this show, you know that sustainable non-governmental organizations make essential contributions to the environment, society, and sustainability of the world at large. I mean, they're responsible for important research, aid, consumer awareness, conservation, and so so much more. And it's important for us to, be aware of the most influential organizations working in sustainability today. And these NGOs often offer valuable resources to students, including research, hands-on internships, and volunteer opportunities. So today I actually was thinking of really speaking about the most influential NGOs in the world. But then I got to thinking about this word influential and what it actually means. And then I kind of sort of correlated it to, I don't know if any of you read, Forbes, and they always have a top 10 list, or 30 under 30, or most successful, or highest, paid actress, or whatever, those kind of lists where, it becomes a thing of ranking as to who's the best. And I wondered if this was enough for NGOs or companies doing good. Should companies be ranked for doing what they're supposed to be doing? How important is the concept of ranking, of being the best, being number one within the NGO space, within the charity space? How many pats on the back should companies get for really doing good? Should they or should they not? So I kind of had this internal dialogue where I felt, no, man, this makes no sense, because how do you then measure impact? Because if you think about it, different NGOs work in different spaces. It's either poverty, unemployment rather, technology, education. There's so many different spaces in which you find, social responsibility. How do you then rank which one is the best? Is it, the NGO helping to save more lives? Is it is that the NGO that should be on top, or should it be the NGO that's really skilling people, giving them the necessary tools, the necessary resources to become better, to change the world, to change the future, to change their family structures, how they interact with their kids, and how their kids see the world. So I kind of have a big issue around ranking NGOs. Should NGOs be ranked? That's the question for today. And if you want to just chip in, please don't be scared to go on our Twitter page or our Instagram page, any page on social-tv. And you can just tell me what you think about ranking NGOs or ranking companies who give or donate or volunteer or do good. It's no secret that a lot of companies want to be recognized for what they do good. In fact, I know that, when you look at corporate social responsibility, in its essence, most of it is based on two theories that suggest that, this is why companies even incorporate social responsibility into their companies. The first is, they obviously want to avoid or counterbalance or, their scrutiny kind of their behavior. They want to sort of avoid the public scrutinizing their lack of ethics. And the first real theory is the penance theory, where firms engage in CSR to help make amends for bad things that they're responsible for, like oil spills. Hashtag BP. The other theory is the insurance theory. And the insurance theory is also quite interesting. It's where, firms or organizations put together a CSI program to help mitigate any damage to their brand that could occur from a future bad behavior. So basically, doing good before they do bad, so that the good sort of is the predominant narrative. But also, obviously it's about building a good reputation and making sure that customers and employees understand or feel as if they're doing something good by being part of the company, or buying something or renting out services from that specific company. So there's a few reasons why being number one is important for a lot of companies, but being number one doing good is even more important because it has so many ripple effects. If you're the top ranked CSI company in the world, what does that do for your brand? What does that do for your customer loyalty? What does that do for your profit? It has to have some sort of make some sort of dent. What a big dent, actually. So I'm seeing that a lot of companies are doing that nowadays. A lot of companies are using initiatives, doing good, giving some sort of money to some sort of cause as their way of PR, of really getting their name out there and having a good reputation. However, again, how does this rank into my concept of whether or not I think companies should or should not be ranked for them doing good? I don't know. I think doing good is a great cover up for a lot of companies, and it can as I said before, it can make a lot of the stuff that they've done in the past, it can make a lot of people forget about it, and it doesn't really help when you forget, because it doesn't mean that it's going to stop, right? So ranking has a good and a bad connotation on the NGO space, on the CSI space, because as much as it is important to really recognize and be aware of the NGOs and the companies that are doing great, it's also very important that we are aware that a lot of the doing good is a cover up, or it is to prohibit or to change perceptions before any bad behavior arises in the future. The top ranking NGO organization is called the NGO Advisor, and every year it comes out with a ranking of the world's top NGOs, and quite interesting performers within the list. And I think I'm just going to come back to it straight after the break, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of who is the top NGO, and perhaps you can let me know whether you think this is a fair representation. We'll be back now.
brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.beastdownmedia.co.za.
Well, as I said before the break, that I'm going to just talk to you guys a little bit about the NGO Advisor, which is one of the annual rankers of NGOs and initiatives that are really trying to change the world. And I'm just going to look a little bit, before I talk about the actual organizations within the list, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the criteria is, or what they've said the criteria is. Obviously, you never know. I do think things like top 10, this top most influential, are things that can be bought and can be manipulated by those who have money. And if you think about the CSI space, it's ranking in, it's bringing in over 10 billion in our country alone. So you can only imagine what it would mean for a world organization, a global organization rather, what a ranking would mean for them to be number one, and also whether or not they have the funds to get to the top is something that we can't neglect. It's something that is prominent. It probably is happening. Who doesn't want to be the best NGO in the world? Again, I do not think this is a fair list, but it's my own opinion. And if you think some other organization should be first, or some other organization should get recognition, please let me know on Twitter at social-1 TV, and I will definitely air your opinions out, and we'll see. We'll have a conversation about it. So the NGO Advisor has had some top performers, and household names within their list. Others are not really known, even within the development community, which is why I always think, we need to scrutinize these top 10 lists. The ranks also provide an outside perspective on an NGO's work, and they also share lessons about what work is happening within the sector from a broader perspective. They've said before even sending out the annual ranking list. It actually started quite a while ago, since it's been around since 2011. And they talked about size not being an important factor. So it doesn't matter even if you've got over 1 million volunteers working in your organization, or you have 1 million employees from your work who go to, volunteer every single year, size means nothing. They're very much interested in showcasing the sense of creativity and innovation that is unique within the non-profit sector. Their policy is to make sure that the methodology gives weight to these ideas of innovation and creativity, weighting transparency and governance as another leading pillar of interest for scoring was another key component in redelivering this list. Another thing I really want to throw a ball at you if you're listening is, again, I think I spoke about it a little bit before, is how do we measure impact? How do we measure social impact? Do we look at stats as in, rates of how many people got jobs as opposed to a year before? That's okay. We can look at stats. But then how do we then specifically say this is why? It's because of this organization. It's because of this a contribution. What is it that we can use? What is it that we can actually use to help navigate where that the impact is really, how the impact can really be calculated, and is it fair to actually to compare NGOs in developing countries and those who aren't developing? And if you think about aid, in its essence, most of it is international. So you've got a bit of an issue there. I think you have a bit of a dilemma because you're not really sure, or you don't really have an idea as to how do you rank help or aid or good work in spaces where, it's either infiltrated by international organizations. Also, how sustainable it is. Do we also look at how long, that initiative lasts, how long that organization lasts? And if that organization obviously moves into different countries, do we look at the countries and how those populations are also affected? A lot of different methodologies need to be at work when we're looking at the best NGO. And methodology has to evolve. And that's what, the NGO advisor has been saying, that they're trying to evolve their methodology for the past few years to really enable a broader definition of what, social responsibility means, what creating shared value actually means. And I think it's very important that they do that, because if you look in 2015, the top 30 organizations of the rankings represented over 12 billion of net assets, 7 billion of yearly income, and about 600 million of a surplus, and nearly 2 million of employees. And that still doesn't cover the extent and the actual industry of charity and social work and philanthropy. There's so much more to it than just 30 organizations. And that's why I find it so difficult to really have people ranking this space. I don't think it should be ranked, or it should be ranked for who does the best in terms of quality, maybe in terms of where NGOs can get help, in terms of getting donations, who can get them the best donations, maybe tools, innovative tools. And I could kind of get the digital space, finding the right tools to really measure, finding the right tools to really help more people. I get that. But what I don't get is looking at one organization and saying, this is the best organization in social goodness, in corporate social responsibility, in corporate social investment. This is the best one. I find it very difficult to get to that conclusion. And I'm not too sure if they actually have got it yet. I really don't believe that they do. But anyway, the list also highlights how both large and small organizations can make an impact, which is important. They've got a few new interesting entries every single year, which I think are quite important. They also look at institutional and private donations. how the NGO community has also impacted political stances. I know a lot of people have reacted to the election of the President Donald Trump by supporting the NGO community, because he does have several projects within the NGO space, which also allows him to have a quite large influence within that category. But anyway, before I even leave and before I get into who is the best NGO, obviously according to the NGO advisor, not according to me, not according to social TV, not according to South African standards, but I think maybe according to NGO advisor, they have ranked BRAC as the top ranking NGO second time in 2 years. So they received the highest score possible using the criteria that's used for the advisor. The NGO assessments draw on publicly available organization information, economic and financial data, human resources and governance, and marketing and communications. So that's the top ranking NGO in the world. Coming in second was Doctors Without Borders, the Skull Foundation, the Danish Refugee Council, and Ashoka rounded out to be to the top 5. Those are the top 5 rankings for 2017. Also, I don't understand how they do the list. I really don't. And I've always been that kind of person that always wants to know what criteria needs to be met for people to just come up with these top 10 lists. Who makes the most money makes sense, but who's the most influential, who's the hottest, that happens a lot in Celebrityville. But how do we also translate that into the NGO space, into the corporate space, to say which companies are doing well and why, and how do we measure that impact? And I think that's food for thought for you when you go home or you at work right now and you are in, your workspace and you are a CSI manager, or you're an NGO director, or you are, responsible for philanthropy in your company. Question to ask is, how do you measure your success, and how do you think, from a South African perspective, success should be measured for an NGO? Should it be a stats concept, a concept of less death, more employment? And how do you round out that figure to say it was a specific organization? There's so many questions in my head and I can't answer them. And what I'll do is I'll get an expert tomorrow or the next day who will just talk a little bit about ranking and policy, and how do we actually get together to find a common denominator to say, okay, this is the benchmark at which we are going to look at NGOs, at which we're going to look at corporate social investment. It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting to see who's doing good and why they're doing good, and if they're really, really doing good for, the people or for the ranking. I find those two things mutually exclusive, I think. But anyway, thank you so much for listening to The Social Show. My name is Virkulana, and we'll be back again tomorrow, hopefully same time, 9:30 in the morning. And you can catch your very freshest news in CSI, CSR, as well as shared value.
Live from 27 Boxes in the heart of Melville, this is brandlive.co.za. Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za.